For Lombard in Philadelphia. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 o'clock. You see a lot of people with witness protection program, they always come down the flag. The marshals will be here tomorrow. I'd like to thank Don and the committee for the privilege, and it is a privilege to participate in Alcoholics Anonymous. Chapter 5 is real clear. I'm supposed to tell you in a general way what my life was like as an active alcoholic, what happened to me, and what my life is like today as a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. But before I start, I need to tell you that when I checked in on Wednesday, the committee was very happy to see me, and they told me how I was a subject of a lot of talk and humor. I was a subject of entertainment for them. The reason being, I come with a friend of mine. Well, I actually travel with two people. But when I called, I said, listen, I'm bringing a friend of my friend. And so they went to the committee meeting. They took it completely out of hand. They said, Bobby Quill's coming with his wife, but he's bringing his girlfriend too, and she needs a mentor. And so I understand that particular committee meeting, every 2 minutes they were talking about my wife and girlfriend. I've never been married, I don't have a girlfriend, but you know. But I'm glad I was able to use you guys. For the clock watchers, I have 2:15, actually 2:13. So I'll try to keep it. I got time frame what I'm supposed to do, and this is it. I was born and raised in a very blue-collar ethnic neighborhood of Philadelphia. I got 7 brothers and sisters. We had no booze in the house at all. My father did not drink, and my mother could not drink. My mother was pregnant for almost 10 years, 10 and a half years. She was. I got a sister who's 11 months older than me. I am 11 months older than my next sister. There's 8 of us in a 10 and a half year span. We were one of the smaller families on the block. That was not unusual back then. We lived in a small 3-bedroom row home, and I never felt a part of. And that's pretty tough to do when you got 10 people living in a small 3-bedroom row home that I never felt a part of, and that would be true even to early recovery. My mother, besides being pregnant for all those years, was also suffered from a history of mental illness and abused prescription medication. And because my father did not drink, he was smart enough not to have any booze in the house. My grandparents, my father's parents, lived around the corner from us, and that's where all the family functions were held. Their basement was finished as a bar, graduations, christenings, things like that, and that's where I had my first drink. I was just a kid the first time I drank. I did not get drunk the first time I drank. But I remember what happened the first time I drank. I was running around the basement bar polishing off the half empties. Or the half fulls, it depends on your perceptions. And then it was Ballantine beer. And I remember that because I remember going up to Connie Mack Stadium with my father, and Ballantine used to sponsor the Phillies, and they had the scoreboard at right center field with the 3 rings. And I was running around polishing off the half empties, and it was my uncles who pointed at me and said, look at Bobby. And see, that's what I always craved. I always wanted your attention, which was nuts because when I got it, I didn't want your attention, you know. But I was just confused as a kid. My drinking really took off in high school. Most of the kids in the neighborhood went to the local diocesan high school. But both my parents were first generation. Both grandparents on both sides were immigrants. And you know what? The kids in the neighborhood used to make fun of my grandparents because of the way they spoke. But if you came to the neighborhood, some of you may think everyone in the neighborhood talks kind of funny. But I loved my grandparents. I loved them. There was always a party in their house. But they knew that you had to make it in this country was education. That's the way you made it. My father was one of 13. My mother from was a much smaller family. She was one of 11. And I had 7 of my uncles who went to either Annapolis or West Point. They went to the military academies. First of all, because it was free, but they knew that you needed education to make it here. So my parents had sent me to a private Jesuit high school. And right away I felt kind of different, because most of the kids who went to this school were from affluent families from the suburbs. Just me and a couple of dirtballs in the neighborhood walked to this school. And we had a reputation because we walked to the school, you know? And these kids are getting dropped off by their parents in their luxury automobiles, and me and the guys from the neighborhood were inside robbing their lockers. Now, I knew that was wrong. I knew that by the values instilled in me, by the nuns as a kid, by my parents, but the need for me to be accepted by you outweighed anything else. And I had a lot of nicknames, and one of those nicknames was Crazy Coil. And I would do things in my gut I knew was wrong, I was uncomfortable doing. But I did it anyway because I didn't want to let you down, because I was at your entertainment, and I was just nuts, you know? And we did all types of things. Like, we sold football pools, and if you won, we didn't pay off. Like, what were you going to do, you know? Or if you wanted to buy a particular substance, we sold you substitute substances. And what were you going to do? I mean, we went through more oregano than the pizzeria, but you know. And there was only 10 of us from my neighborhood. Like, we were scattered through all 4 years, but you know, we thought we were gangsters, but we were idiots, you know. But I remember my freshman year of prep. It's September, it's football season, there was an away game, we rented a bus, there was drinking, there was fighting, there was police activity. It was really a lot of fun. And I remember my first day back to school. It was a weekend, the first day back to school, we all had to go sit at disciplinarian. And he had us all lined up outside his office. It was all upperclassmen, except me and another kid from the neighborhood. We're the only 2 freshmen. And the priest came up to us, he said, "What's with you guys? You guys here like 2 weeks and you're getting this jackpot already?" And I just shrugged my shoulders. I said, "You know, fella, just one of them things." And what it would be the story of my life. Put in new situations, I found out, you know, I didn't play football, so I didn't hang out with them kids. Even when I did well academically, I didn't hang out with the AP kids because they were weird. I was about nitwits, and every time I was in a new situation, I found out who the nitwits were, and that's who I hung out with, you know. And that's the way I did it, you know. I didn't make the dean's list, but I didn't fail out of it. I gave the bare minimum effort required to get by, you know. Now, this school sits on the corner of 17th and Girard in North Philadelphia. 3 blocks away is the subway, the Broad Street subway. Well, these kids from the suburbs used to have to take public transportation home at the end of the day. So they would wait for the trolley to come out Girard Avenue to pick up the trolley up to take them the 3 blocks to the subway. And they would wait 20, 30 minutes for the trolley, which I thought was nuts, because they were afraid to walk through the neighborhood. Well, me and the kids from the neighborhood, there was a bar called the Ebony Showcase Lounge on the corner of 15th and Girard, which was 2 blocks away from the school. And when I was a junior, I was a regular at the Ebony. Now you got to think, I'm what, 16, 17 at that time? I look like I'm 12, you know? As you can tell by the name of the establishment, I'm not from the neighborhood, you know? And I went there just to get cold beer. You know, they had dancers and they had cold beer. But a lot of times I went there to show these kids from the suburbs how tough I was, you know? I'm not a tough guy, I never was, and every time I walked out that street and I sat in that bar, I was terrified. But I didn't want anybody else, you know, playing the role, you know, just nuts. When it came time to graduate from the prep, I really had no desire to further my education, and I knew that ticked my parents off because they didn't have much, and they made a great deal of sacrifice to send all my brothers and sisters to private school. So I know I couldn't stay home because there'd be hell to catch, and I don't like to catch hell. Love to create it, don't like to catch it. But my options were limited. I had no money, I had no skills, what am I going to do? So what I did do, I enlisted in the service. That really wasn't a bright move back then. Service wasn't popular, there were still guys living in Canada, but you know, I enlisted. And you know, after my training, I wound up getting sent overseas 13 months. And that's when my drinking really took off. I never messed around with other substances. I never even smoked a joint. I knew a lot of guys from the neighborhood who had gone over and got whacked on certain things, but I had a fear of other substances. But I had a drinking problem. At this point, I had a drinking problem. I'm there a couple months, and several good friends of mine got killed, and I don't know how to handle that. Because in my family, we didn't talk about nothing. And once you moved out of the house, whether you went away to school or you want to get married, you were no longer privy to the secrets of the family. Everything stayed inside you, and everything stayed within the walls of the house. And if you moved out, that was it. And that's not a shot at my folks. That's just the way it was. We didn't talk about nothing, you know. And when my friends got killed, I didn't know how to handle that. But I drank to numb the pain. You know, and that's what booze did for me, numb the pain. I did not distinguish myself in the service. I didn't do badly either. You know, I gave the bare minimum effort required to get by. At this point, I didn't want any attention, good attention or bad attention. I didn't want anything at all. Just wanted to do my job and hope you didn't notice me. When my tour was up, I came home, I enrolled in school, wound up taking a couple civil service exams, and I started going to St. Joe's. Back then, St. Joe's was a small school. I don't think there was more than 3,000 of us through all 4 years. So it was about 15, 20 kids at most in the class.